So let's start. Just like animals, plants do have hormones. Uh, what perhaps is different is that for animals, you have these hormones produced by glands and then transported uh, through blood to the different target organs. But for plants, of course, we can talk about blood. Um, um, we can talk about where these hormones are produced and then diffuse to different areas where they can have impact. So we don't have many of these hormones really. So we'll talk about about 5 of them that we shall talk about. But of course, for humans, that the hormones are quite many. You can talk about, for example, the pituitary gland producing over 5 hormones, and that is only the pituitary gland. So, what if you include the other glands, the gonads, the adrenal glands, and many other, the pancreas and others? That means that in humans we have a lot, we have a number of these hormones, unlike in plants. So when we have a discussion about these plant hormones, the focus is usually on understanding where these hormones are produced. That's the first thing to note. After knowing what produces them, or where are they produced, then we can look at the effects. Where do these hormones have their effects, and what effects are those? And therefore, if we know the effects of these hormones, then we can know what happens if these hormones are not produced in the adequate quantities required for different processes. But we can also know how to use these hormones in order to improve productivity, or agricultural productivity, or increasing yields in different environments. So that's the discussion about these hormones that we are having here. These hormones, general, in general terms, when we talk about plant hormones, we're talking about these hormones contributing to growth, contributing to flowering and the fruition. Those are the key things. And of course, we have some of them playing an important role in dormancy and other things. The major category of these plant hormones are the auxins, and then we have the gibberellins, and then we have the cytokinins, and then we have what you call the abscisic acid, or the ADA, and then the ethylene or ethene. These are the hormones that we are going to look at. So now, auxins, this is not the first time that you're actually looking at this term, because if you looked at what you call trophisms, which are growth movements in plants, you must have looked at what we call auxins and how they contribute to positive phototrophism, and how they contribute to geotrophism in the root or in the root system in plants. So auxins indole 3-acetic acid, what can be abbreviated as IAA, is produced at the tips of the apical buds, or at the apical buds. That's where they are produced. That's where from the, or even leaves emerging, they emerge from what you call the apical buds. Okay, and then young leaves and embryos. So what do they do? they cause elongation. Okay, they cause elongation of growth. So that's why we have them in the regions of elongation in the shoot and then in the root. We'll see that, or you already know that the impact of auxins in the shoot and in the root system actually depends on the concentration. If you have higher concentration of auxins in the shoot, then you will have growth. If you have lower concentration of the auxins in the root system, then you will have growth. That's an important distinction that you really need to note. Okay, so the effects of auxins are quite many. So we start with one that they inhibit lateral buds. Okay, they inhibit lateral buds. That means that they inhibit growth of branches. So they basically promote the growth of growing upwards, but not growing to a lot of branches. So that's point number one. Like I said, in the shoot, they actually promote growth, especially if they're in higher concentration. So some of the factors that, or some of the effects that we're talking about here are related to that general point. So they soften cell walls, allowing the cells to stretch. That is related to elongation still. They stimulate cell wall expansion. That is still elongation, the growth that you're talking about. Then one unique feature here that we are noting is that they induce what you call parthenocaphy. Parthenocaphy. The meaning of that is that fruits grow without fertilization. It's about bearing of fruits without fertilization. That is what you call parthenocaphy. So it is actually common in the pineapples, but of course also in other plants that can go undergo that process. So auxins promote that, or they induce parthenocaphy. That's another point there. They aid in movement of organic compounds in the phloem. You know that the phloem is responsible for transportation of organic material, basically in the form of sucrose, but we also have amino acids and others being transported in the phloem. They induces phototrophic and geotrophic responses. This is what I talked about earlier on, and I'm believing that you actually know this, and I have explained it in terms of the concentration already. Therefore, no. So higher concentration of auxins in the roots inhibits growth. Here we're noting that it inhibits lateral growth. Okay. Senescence through the inhibiting the breakdown of proteins and chlorophyll. So when you have a plant growing, there comes a time when the plant will no longer grow, basically becoming turning to basically what we call senescence, that you don't have growth processes, especially the anabolic processes are exceeded by the catabolic processes. The meaning of that is that when you have, for example, an organism getting old, that the processes for synthesis decrease. That is, anabolic processes decrease, and yet the catabolic processes continue. So that is what happens in senescence, the organism becoming old, okay, and not being very productive for these plants. we usually talk about issues to do with productivity in terms of biomass. So productivity at that point actually decreases. Okay, promotes root initiation, and then this one promotes femaleness in flowers and delays abscission. Abscission is the shedding of leaves, and we will see one of the major plant hormone responsible for shedding of leaves, but we are also saying that auxins are responsible for shedding of leaves. What I need to say at this point is that plant hormones have functions that are not extremely distinct to one particular hormone. So we have seen auxins playing an important role in growth, in flowering, and in flowering, in roots, and then also growth in the roots and also growth in the shoots, and then inhibiting lateral buds. You will see that these same roles will also appear with some of the other plant hormones that we shall talk about. But of course, there are particular plant hormones that stand out for a particular role, but also have other what we can call subsidies.